Continuing on, last time we ended by talking about the levels of organization. So we said we're going to start with the chemical level, then we put those together, atoms together to make molecules, we put molecules together to make cells, then cells make up tissues, and we talked about those four basic types of tissues. So now we're going to take a look at what tissues make up. So when we combine levels of tissues, that's how we get organs. Different kinds of tissues that join together to form body structures. And when we take a look at these, we see that they usually have a recognizable shape. They're composed of two or more different types of tissues, and they're going to have specific functions. So if you remember from that picture, we saw the stomach, and within the stomach, we would see that we have is the serous membrane, the smooth muscle tissue layer, and the epithelial tissue layer. So multiple types of tissues working together to make up organs. Then we take organs and build them together in order to make systems. So a system consists of related organs that have a common function, and these work together to maintain health, protect you from disease, and allow for reproduction of the species. So when we think about body systems, there are a total of 11 different body systems that work together to make our body run effectively and efficiently. So I want you to be thinking about 11 body systems and which ones you can name, because I'm going to ask you about that here in a little bit. Finally, we take those systems and we put them together, and that's how we reach the largest level of organization. But all of those 11 body systems combine in order to make up an organism, and that means one human being, just like you and me. So as I mentioned, there are 11 principal body systems. So on your notes or on a spare piece of paper that you have, I want you to pause this video and I want you to write down what are those 11 systems. Ready? Go. So if you're like the average anatomy and physiology student, there were probably a few that you had missing. So we're going to take a look and complete the chart. And if you remember in class, I told you or gave you that notes handout, but if you can see, it kind of made them tiny. So I gave you another handout, and so I'd like you to use that larger handout, that full page front and back that's got, instead of the portrait, it's got the landscape orientation. And let's take a look at the chart and fill in the information for the 11 body systems. So the first one we're going to take a look at is the integumentary system. And this will actually be the order that we take a look at different systems that we find in our bodies. So the integumentary system, some of you, most of you actually, probably did not even have this down on your list. And several people often say, I had no idea that this was a system in my body. It's okay if you say that because it doesn't often get talked about. And so when we take a look at the integumentary system, what that means is it's made up of the skin and other structures that basically deal with the skin, such as our hair, nails, and sweat and oil glands. And so the components are telling us the parts, or basically the anatomy, and then the functions are dealing with the physiology with these systems. So when we look at the functions, we say that the skin and those other structures are responsible for helping to regulate body temperature. Now, one thing I want to mention as you go to fill in the consists of or the components and the functions with these different systems, you don't have to necessarily write this word for word, but write it down so that it makes sense in your brain. And if I were to ask you, you should be able to tell me these things. So don't just write something like body temp, give you some more little hints so that you could tell me the specific function. So just as a heads up there. So we say that the integumentary system helps regulate body temperature. So it's what helps keep our body temperature where it's supposed to be. And you guys are probably, aware of this since we are required to do those temperature checks every morning. But the normal, what we call the normal body temperature, is 98.6. But it's interesting because they've said that our temperature, body temperature, has been decreasing that normal number. So if your body temperature is around 97 degrees, that's not abnormal. But that's what our integumentary system is going to do. It helps regulate our body temperature and it's going to help protect our body. So it's kind of a shield that helps cover all the structures deeper inside of our body. And so that's great for us to have. It's going to also eliminate some waste. We have sweat glands and oil glands that can release those substances. Our integumentary system is also responsible for helping us make vitamin D, which is something that our body needs to function. And we do that with the help of the sun. And our integumentary system is also going to detect sensations like touch, pressure, pain, warmth, and cold so that we can be able to respond to those situations accordingly. And if you see right next to that, or at the end of the row there, I have a column that has illustrations, just kind of showing you examples of those various structures within our body. So there's the picture. And you can see I drew an arrow pointing down to show fingernails and toenails. And I kind of use this slide just to remind people that this is anatomy and physiology. So there will be times where we look at reproductive organs in models and pictures and things like that. And it's not anything to be embarrassed by because we know that people have those different parts and we'll use the appropriate names for those terms. But just to kind of give you a heads up and don't be surprised, especially when you look in the book, because you will see those structures, because we want to give you an accurate portrayal of the body. So second up, we're going to take a look at the skeletal system. So when we look at the skeletal system, we are basically talking about all the bones and the joints of the body, along with their associated cartilages. And so the skeletal system, as it says here, this will be the second system that we look at in this class. And we'll talk about the 206 bones that make up our body. And no, you won't have to memorize them all. But it's really cool to think about that many bones found in our body, allowing us to be able to do what we need to do. And another fun fact about the skeletal system, almost half of our bones are found in our hands and our feet. So why do we need all these bones? Well, they're going to be responsible for supporting and protecting our body. You can probably think really easily of some really important structures that get protected with our bones. For example, our rib cage and our skull protecting our heart, lungs, and our brain. Those are pretty important things. Our bones also provide a specific area for muscle attachment. So in order for us to be able to move or locomote, we have to be able to have muscles attached to our bones. So in order to do that, we have things called ligaments and tendons, and that's what connects bones to bones or bones to muscle so that we're able to move around. Along with this, our bones help assist with body movements. And then finally, our bones are responsible for storage. We're going to store the cells that produce our blood cells. So pretty incredible to think that within our bones is where blood is made. And then also our bones store minerals and lipids or fats, which is, or these are things that we need again to be able to function appropriately. So here's the lovely picture of the skeletal system. And of course, you can see that all 206 bones are not labeled in this picture, just to kind of give you an idea. And the other thing that I like about it, I know it makes it look kind of creepy, but it does show what the actual body looks like. So you can kind of see where those bones are in relation to where our skin is found. So kind of cool stuff. The third system that we're going to take a look at is the muscular system. So this will be where we end our semester. But the muscular system basically refers to the skeletal muscle. Now we're going to learn how there's 3 different types of muscles found in our body. But when we talk about the muscular system, we're just looking at that skeletal muscle tissue. And basically what that means is this is muscle that's usually attached to bones. The other two types of muscle are smooth and cardiac, and we'll talk about those when we talk about tissues next unit. But why do we need muscles? Well, it's pretty phenomenal to think about this, but we said there's 206 bones in the body. There's over 600 muscles in the body. Why do we need this many? This is what allows us to be able to move. It also is what helps us maintain our posture. If you've heard of having really strong core muscles and how that helps you sit up straight and stand tall, that is really important and something that I always need to work on. And then also our muscular system is what's responsible for producing heat. Think about when you get cold, what do you do? What does your body do when you get cold? My 4-year-old Sawyer would say, Mom, we shiver. And I say, that's exactly right. And when you shiver, that's your muscles working to help warm you up because it's all about that homeostasis. We want to maintain our normal body temperature, keep everything functioning as it's supposed to. So our muscles are going to work harder when we're cold to try to help keep us warm. And they can do that for a little amount of time, but not for too long. Otherwise, things will stop working. All right, so then we're going to move on to, oh, sorry, I forgot my picture. So that's an interesting view, right? If we peeled off our skin, this is what our muscles would look like underneath. And the cool thing with muscles is that one reason why we have so many is that muscles have to work in pairs. So while one is flexing, we have another one that's using the opposite motion, and that's what allows us to be able to have our movement. So next up is the nervous system. And the nervous system, we spend a good chunk of time second semester diving into the system. The nervous system is made up of our brain, our spinal cord, a whole bunch of nerves, and then also sense organs like our eyes and ears. And so the main function of our nervous system is to regulate our body activities. Remember that word homeostasis. And it's going to do this through nerve impulses. And it's going to detect changes in the environment. Then it will interpret those changes like, is this a big deal? Do I need to respond to it? Or is it okay? And then responding to those changes, and it can respond to those changes in one of two ways. It can either bring about muscular contractions. So, for example, if you have ever heard of fight or flight, if you're in a situation and let's say it's a life or death situation and you gotta move, then that's your body bringing on those muscular contractions so that you can move to survive, or also by glandular secretions. And so with glandular secretions, you might be thinking, what in the world? But what that does, for example, if something happens, your body can release hormones so that you can respond and respond quickly. And there's lots of different examples, not just with hormones, but just to kind of give you an idea of how that all works. But your nervous system is really responsible for communication within your whole body so that everything can respond accordingly, like we said in these situations, to keep us kicking. So we look at our nervous system, like we said, there's the brain and the spinal cord, and the nerves branching off in yellow. All right, then the last one on this side of our paper is the endocrine system. And the endocrine system, this is maybe one that you didn't remember or know the name of either. But this is made up of all the glands and tissues that produce chemical regulators of body functions. And basically, we call these hormones. So any of the glands and tissues that deal with hormones are organs that are found within the endocrine system. And so their main functions are to regulate body activities through those hormones transported by the blood to various target organs. So once again, just maintaining homeostasis to help us to be able to function accordingly. So when we take a look at the pictures, you can see pituitary gland, the pineal gland, thymus, thyroid gland, adrenal gland, pancreas, ovary, testes, lots of different structures involved with the endocrine system. take another break, and I'll see you back soon.